good evening, or morning, or whatever word still applies. This is the last signal radio, broadcasting on whatever fragments of the timeline are still holding together, on whatever pieces of reality haven't decided to vanish entirely. I'm here because someone has to be. Someone has to speak while everything else falls silent, freezes, or skips ahead without warning. If you're out there, if your clock still works, if your mind is still your own, stay with me, because something happened tonight. Something I don't think the world has even begun to understand. Something so sudden and absolute, it makes everything we thought we knew about existence feel like a lie. At 3:17 a.m. GMT, every clock on Earth stopped. Not slowed, not glitched, not sputtered and hesitated. Stopped. Every second, every tick, every heartbeat measured and marked by a device. Frozen. Phones froze mid-notification. Digital billboards locked into a single frame. The glow of neon trapped in one meaningless message. Analog watches seized like they'd been turned to stone. Every countdown, every timer, every instrument humanity had built to grasp the passage of time died all at once. At first, nobody noticed. Not really. We live so deep inside our routines, our rhythms, our endless chasing of minutes and hours, that a single second out of place seems invisible. But then the subtle, impossible reality became undeniable. At that exact same moment, everything else stopped too. The world didn't just pause, it froze. Planes held their positions mid-flight, suspended as if the sky itself had been carved from glass. Cars froze in intersections, engines humming in a silence that never existed. Even the wind, that invisible pulse of the earth, halted as if the atmosphere itself had been caught in a trap. Leaves hung in the air, hovering as though the world had been paused with a remote no one should ever have held. Shadows refused to move. Waves in the oceans stiffened like concrete. Animals hung mid-step, mid-breath, mid-thought. It was a silence so total, so incomprehensibly absolute, it felt alive. Not empty, alive. It was as if the earth itself had been instructed to hold its breath, and it was obeying without question. I remember standing beside the radio board, staring at the second hand that refused to move, telling myself it was a glitch, a malfunction, a trick of the fluorescent lights. But then I looked outside. A bird hung in the middle of flapping its wings, utterly motionless, frozen mid-air like a photograph someone had carelessly pinned to the sky. A car's tires hovered centimeters above the road. People on the street, where there were people, were caught mid-stride, mid-gesture, mid-thought. The world had become a frame, a paused scene from a movie that no one had the power to play forward or rewind. The city smelled of concrete, wet asphalt, and something more metallic, a tang of impossibility, and it stayed like that. 12 minutes. 12 minutes with no motion, no sound, no flow of time, no promise of continuity. 12 minutes where the impossible became the new reality, and every second stretched into an eternity so heavy you could feel it pressing down on your chest. And then, just as suddenly, violently, unnaturally, it all jumped. Not forward by 12 minutes, not by some logical progression that might have given us a foothold in understanding. Forward by 7 hours. 7 hours swallowed in an instant. as if the universe had decided our timeline was no longer sufficient, no longer useful. Everything we were doing, feeling, fearing, hoping for, gone, erased, leaping ahead like it had never existed. The clocks spun wildly to catch up, digital displays flickering madly, hands on analog watches trembling before finding the new hour. But the world outside had already shifted. Shadows fell differently. The wind had returned, but it carried an edge I hadn't felt before, a weight of wrongness. People resumed their movements mid-conversation, mid-motion, as though 7 hours of experience had been stolen from them without their consent, leaving confusion, nausea, and a gnawing, unshakable unease in its wake. And that's where we are now. That's the world I'm speaking to you from. A world where time itself is no longer trustworthy, where the seconds and minutes we counted on, the continuity we took for granted, has betrayed us in ways we can barely comprehend. If you can hear me, if you are still yourself and not just a fragment caught in this shattered chronology, hold on. Hold on to whatever feels real, because nothing else can be trusted. Clocks updated instantly, snapping to the new hour, as if the skipped time had never mattered. Screens flickered with fresh data, weather reports from places where storms had already passed, stock prices for markets that hadn't opened yet, emergency alerts that no one remembered triggering. People blinked and found the sun in the exact same position it had been before everything froze, as if the sky itself was pretending none of this had happened. 7 missing hours, lived, experienced, occupied by us in some way, but wiped clean from memory. People woke up in different positions from where they'd been standing when the freeze hit. Some found food half-eaten on their counters they didn't remember touching. Some discovered their clothes changed without ever recalling lifting a hand to undress or redress. Others had bruises, cuts, or dirt under their nails, with no idea what they had fought, touched, or run from. Something happened during those hours. To all of us. Everywhere. And the worst part? The world can't agree on what those hours felt like. Some say they dreamed of enormous machinery turning in the dark, gears the size of cities grinding against invisible walls. Some saw endless corridors made of light, stretching out in angles that shouldn't exist, like geometry built by something that doesn't understand humans. Others swear they saw themselves, copies, reflections, doubles, staring back with slight differences in their expressions, like someone wearing their skin, but not quite getting the performance right. And me? I remember only one thing, a presence standing right behind me. Close enough that I felt breath on my neck. Close enough that I could sense the weight of eyes on the back of my skull. Close enough that when time restarted, the room felt too empty, like something had been there, and stepped away just a second too late. Then came the panic. Satellites drifted out of orbit as if their trajectories had been erased. GPS went dead worldwide. Airplanes were forced into manual landings because their instruments rebooted with dates that made no sense. Some jumped 30 years into the future, others decades into the past. Servers showed logs written by programs that were never run, messages written in formats no one recognized. Hospitals reported patients aging impossible amounts, hair growing inches in minutes, wrinkles carving themselves into faces as if time had sprinted forward while the world wasn't looking. And governments, in their endless talent for lying with confidence, called it a temporary temporal anomaly. But let's be honest, nobody has any idea what happened. And the scientists? They're terrified. Not because time froze, but because it froze perfectly. No drift, no quantum jitter, no microscopic fluctuations. Every atom, every molecule, every gravitational ripple, every photon, halted with absolute precision, as if commanded, as if the universe didn't malfunction. It obeyed. Obeyed something. Obeyed by someone. People keep asking me the same question through the handful of transmissions that still slip through whatever is happening to the airwaves. Is this the beginning of something? And the truth is, yes, it is. Because since the missing hours, something else has started happening. Something worse. Something is spreading. Time is beginning to fracture. I've gotten recordings, analog only because digital can't seem to hold on to anything anymore, of people repeating the same sentence for minutes at a time without noticing, stuck in a loop like their minds are trapped on a scratched record. Others vanish from a room and reappear seconds later with memories from 2 days in the future. Some walk into a hallway and come out younger. Some are older. Some, not quite themselves. And the fractures, whatever they are, they're growing. A caller earlier told me he watched his neighbor open the same door 4 times in a row, like reality itself kept rewinding just for him, each time resetting, but somehow leaving him aware of the repetition. Others are waking up days older. One man claims he lost 9 teeth overnight, like he'd lived a decade in his sleep without noticing a single heartbeat. Some people see themselves doing something seconds before they actually do it, their future flickering back at them like a glitch in a mirror, a warning they can't understand and can't escape. Buildings are aging too. A skyscraper in Shanghai went from brand new to crumbling in the span of a lunch break. Cameras caught vines growing decades in minutes. Some objects reverse time entirely. Burnt paper unburns, shattered glass pieces themselves back together, rust peeling away from metal as if it remembered what it used to be. They're calling it temporal decay, though that feels like a word invented by someone trying to calm themselves while the planet falls apart. But there's a detail no one's talking about yet. A detail that should terrify every single one of you still listening, clinging to the static of this broadcast. These anomalies aren't random. They aren't scattered or chaotic. They're forming a pattern. I've seen the data myself. Cities where loops occur line up with regions where objects unburn. Zones with sudden, impossible aging connect to places where time reverses. All of them form a spiral that stretches across the globe. And at the center of it, there's something vast, something invisible, something the missing hours were only the first warning of. I know I'm supposed to reassure you, tell you that the world's governments and scientists are working on it, that we'll figure it out, that everything will eventually be fine. But I can't lie to you. Not anymore. Something is coming. Something that understands time far better than we do. Something that used those 7 hours to do something to us, or to the planet, or to the timeline itself. And whatever it is, it isn't finished. It's still working, still moving, still watching. Stay on this frequency. Stay awake if you can. Stay aware of your surroundings, because time is no longer a straight line. Days and seconds are leaking into each other. The rules we've relied on for millennia no longer apply, and we are no longer alone inside it. This is the last signal radio. If you're still hearing this, You're still in the same timeline as me. For now. And for now might be the only phrase that still holds any meaning at all. If you can hear me, it means your reality hasn't folded, rewound, or split yet. But that window is closing, fast. The missing hours were only the first crack in the shell, the smallest hint that whatever holds time together is starting to come apart. And now the fractures are spreading everywhere, crawling across the world like stress lines on a piece of glass right before it shatters. People are getting stuck in loops. Some loops are small, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, maybe a minute at most, tiny repetitions of an action they don't even realize they're repeating. I got a message earlier, sent through analog fax because it's one of the few systems that still behaves like it belongs to this timeline. From a paramedic who watched a man tie his shoe 50 times in a row. Same knot, same tug on the lace, same sigh of frustration. He just kept doing it, like time refused to let him finish the moment. Like that one act became locked in a perpetual retry he couldn't escape. Others are being swallowed by larger loops, whole conversations, entire commutes, full arguments repeating like broken film reels stuck in a projector no one can switch off. A caller from Jakarta said he drove the same street 23 times in a row, each loop beginning the moment he reached the end. His car turned around without him remembering touching the wheel. He only realized something was wrong when a pedestrian he passed kept giving him the same confused look, over and over, like both of them were trapped in a script they hadn't agreed to perform. But here's the terrifying part, the part that should make the hair on your arms stand up. People inside loops don't know they're looping. They live the moment once. Only once. While the people watching them see it repeat dozens, hundreds of times. Imagine reaching to pick up a glass, and someone else sees you repeat that exact same stretch of your arm, that exact same motion, that exact same blink, again and again and again, like a GIF stuck in reality, while you feel only one smooth, continuous action. Imagine saying a sentence once, but a loved one hears it echo out of your mouth like a glitching speaker. Reality is stuttering. Time is buffering. And humanity, every single one of us, is stuck in the loading screen of a universe that doesn't seem interested in finishing whatever it started. I've been getting transmissions from all over the world, and in the rare ones that manage to break through the distortions and temporal noise, the stories are always the same. Teachers repeat the same sentence until their voices crack and their eyes glaze over like they're stuck inside a moment they can't escape. Children laughing, then laughing again, the sound perfectly identical every time, as if the universe is copying and pasting the same second over and over. Entire office buildings caught in 2-minute cycles, workers pacing the same hallways, turning the same corners, shuffling papers they've already shuffled, while emergency responders stand outside helpless because every time they force a door open, the loop snaps back and the door seals itself like it was never touched. And it's not just people. Animals are looping too. Birds trapped in repeating arcs across the sky, their wings flapping in the exact same rhythm as if tethered to invisible tracks. Dogs pacing in circles, so precise that their paw prints land in the same spots, indistinguishable from the last pass. In one video, grainy analog footage, the only kind left that reality still respects, an entire herd of deer loops a leap over a fallen log, their bodies rewinding mid-air before gravity finishes its claim. The environment is caught in it as well. Rainstorms falling upward and downward in alternating cycles, droplets zipping back into clouds before crashing to Earth again. Shadows sliding backward to previous angles, like the sun keeps doubting its own position. A forest in Finland, if the timestamp on the analog relay is remotely accurate, spent 40 minutes oscillating between dawn and dusk, trees glowing gold, then dimming, then glowing again like the sky was flickering. And listen to me carefully. These loops aren't random. Nothing about any of this is random. I want to walk you through something that came across the wire an hour ago. A researcher, one of the few still broadcasting in analog, one of the last whose signal hasn't been eaten alive by recursive interference, sent me coordinates. Hundreds of locations where loops have been documented. I plotted them on paper, not digital. Digital can't be trusted anymore. It scrambles, reorders, mirrors things that were never mirrored. And when I connected them, line by line, something happened. A shape emerged. A spiral. A perfect, repeating, mathematically clean spiral expanding across the planet. The same spiral pattern I mentioned before. The one forming from the aging zones and the reversed time zones. The one no one wants to acknowledge, because acknowledging it means admitting this isn't chaos. Whatever is causing this, it is creating order. A map, a scan, a pattern. And something enormous sits at the center of it. Geographically, that center falls somewhere in the central Atlantic, thousands of miles offshore. But here's where things slide from terrifying into catastrophic. Every day, if day is even the right word anymore, the spiral grows. The loops form along its edge like ripples marking the boundary of something advancing, meaning the world is being enveloped. Not all at once, not in an explosion, but in cycles, in rings, in repetitions. One loop at a time, one layer of the spiral closing in after another. Whatever's at the center, it's coming. Or worse, it's already here. And the rest of us are just catching up. Some governments are trying to hide it, trying to pretend this is just a glitch in global infrastructure or a mass psychological event. But others have collapsed entirely because their leaders, those same people meant to steady entire nations, got stuck in loops and couldn't function. Think about that for a moment. A head of state caught in a repeating 20-second window, stuck signing the same document or sipping the same cup of tea while the country outside is collapsing into temporal chaos. Some nations have declared temporal emergencies, whatever that means in a world where time has stopped taking orders. Others are telling people to remain indoors, avoid digital devices, and stay away from reflective surfaces, because reflections don't match anymore. They drift. They lag. They follow different rules. I've seen the footage. A woman washing her hands saw her reflection begin washing hers before she even touched the water. Then the reflection froze. Then, with a slow, impossible smoothness, it smiled. She did not. Temporal decay is touching everything now, and I'm starting to worry that my radio booth isn't as safe as I thought. A few minutes ago, if minutes still exist, I reached for a pen on the desk. It wasn't there. I blinked, and suddenly it appeared. Then it vanished again. Then it reappeared on the floor. I'm not looping. I know I'm not looping. It's the world around me slipping through neighboring moments like overlapping film reels rubbing against each other, scenes from different cuts of reality bleeding into one another. Some people think these loops are just malfunctions, the last gasps of a system failing under cosmic strain, like time's engine is overheating and throwing sparks. But I don't think time is failing. Not at all. I think time is being rewound, fast-forwarded, paused, scrubbed back and forth by something using the world like a piece of media. Like our entire reality is some kind of timeline in an editing program, and someone or something keeps dragging the playhead across our existence. The missing hours? That was the moment the user pressed pause. The loops. Those are the user dragging backward and forward, inspecting frames, testing how the pieces fit together. We're not watching randomness. We're watching interaction. Something is touching the timeline, examining it, testing it, probing the seams. And humans, fragile, linear creatures, are caught between the edits. More messages are pouring in, slipping through the static like whispers from broken clocks. People reporting versions of themselves standing in doorways, staring like they're waiting to see which version will continue. Loops overlapping. Two versions of the same person occupying the same space, jittering over one another like corrupted 3D renders. One report described a man who split, literally split. Two versions of him peeled apart like reflections stepping away from a mirror. One of them spoke in a voice the witness said was too calm. The other one screamed like it was being unmade. When the loop reset, both were gone. This world, our world, is becoming a collage of timelines layered over each other, fragments of futures, pasts, and discarded possibilities piling up like someone is sorting through drafts of reality, but hasn't decided which one to keep. And none of them seem stable. None of them feel like home. I don't know how much longer this broadcast will hold. Analog is stable, yes, but stability means nothing when the concept of signal duration stops applying. I don't even know how long I've been speaking. The clock on the wall keeps skipping back 10 seconds, then jumping ahead 20, then freezing altogether. I could be speaking for minutes, for hours, or for negative time. Speaking before I begin or finishing before I start. If you're still getting this transmission, hold on to it. It might be the last anchor you have, the last thing tethered to continuity instead of spiraling fractals. Stay alive. Stay aware. And if you start repeating yourself, if your body or your mind begins to fall into a loop, force yourself out of it. Break the moment. Move, shout, throw something. Disrupt the pattern. Don't let time decide who you are. You're still here, still listening, still choosing. For now, that's everything. If you're still hearing me, it means you are still in one of the timelines that hasn't been rewritten yet. But I don't know for how long. Since the loops began, the world has only gotten stranger, more unmoored, more hostile to the concept of linear time. I've been reviewing the reports, the messages, the fragments of analog footage that somehow survive the fractures. Shaky tapes, warped film, the hiss of static hiding glimpses of impossible moments. And I can tell you this, time is no longer just looping. It isn't pausing and rewinding in neat little increments anymore. Time is splitting, reversing, accelerating, fracturing into shards that don't fit back together. Some people wake up older, not just a few years, not just a few days. I've gotten reports, verified with photographs, analog timestamps, and eyewitness testimony, of people aging decades in hours. Children waking up with gray hair, faces lined and hardened before they've even reached adulthood. adults with deep furrows carving across their skin as if the sun had burned decades into them while they slept. And it's selective. Not everyone ages. Some people seem untouched, as if they were exempt from whatever cosmic mechanism is at work. Some even revert. They wake up younger than they should be, their memories intact, their bodies reborn into earlier versions of themselves, like the universe has decided to rewind them to a timeline it prefers, a version of life it wants to preserve or erase. And the more I dig, the less consistent it becomes. Aging happens in bursts, accelerations, moments snatched from the past or stolen from the future. People can jump forward, backward, or stand still in the middle of minutes as the world around them folds. Witnesses report seeing friends who shouldn't exist anymore, faces shifting into their parents, their grandparents, versions of people who lived decades ago, or haven't been born yet. Nothing is stable. Nothing is safe. Time has stopped being a river and has become a storm, a tide that crashes differently on every shore, sometimes leaving you older, sometimes younger, sometimes in pieces you don't recognize. If you're listening, if you're still human, stay alert. Keep track of yourself. Compare yourself to photographs, to notes, to anything that survived the fractures. Because the universe is no longer content to move forward. It's a rewrite. It's editing. And in some timelines, it's already decided who and what will exist. Buildings are doing the same thing. A tower that had stood for 20 years is now crumbling in a single morning. Concrete and steel unraveling, like yarn pulled through invisible fingers. Another building, abandoned for decades, has suddenly reassembled as if it had never been touched by time at all, brick by brick, window by window, perfectly intact. Bridges are bending backward, paving returning to pristine asphalt, streetlights straightening as if the years they endured were erased in a heartbeat. Cars reverse to untouched factory condition, complete with license plates that never existed. Tires perfect, paint immaculate, interiors unscarred. It's happening to objects, too. Burnt books unburn, pages curling back into inked form. Shattered glass reforms seamlessly, shards snapping together with a soundless click. Even memories can flip. People claim to remember events in reverse order, recalling conversations before they were spoken, meals uneaten, arguments unmade, like life is a tape being played backward for them alone. Scientists have named it temporal decay. But what scares me more than the name is the pattern. Because when you plot these events, as I have, they are not random. The aging, the reversals, the loops, they all trace a spiral, not a random spiral, a perfect one, a global spiral. And at the center, something is watching, something measuring, something intelligent. The Chronology Institute, yes, the old Cold War network nobody believed existed, has started leaking reports to me. Analogs only, encrypted, scribbled by hand, smuggled through underground channels that exist only in fragments of the old world. They call the spiral the scan. The missing hours were the initial probe. The loops and reversals are the adjustments. And now the aging and rewinding, that is the calibration phase. Whatever is doing this is treating Earth like a test chamber. Every anomaly, every reversed clock, every frozen moment, every rewound second is a measurement. And the more I see, the more precise it gets. I've received calls from people observing impossible things. A man who watched a river flow backward, fish leaping against the current to return to the lakes upstream. A mother who saw her infant regress into a toddler and then a newborn over the course of a single night. Entire city blocks experiencing fast-forwarded decay, crumbling into dust, then immediately restoring themselves as if nothing had ever happened. The chaos is global, but it is precise. It is not random. The universe is not failing. It is being edited. Every building, every person, every leaf and stone is a frame in a colossal sequence, scrutinized, manipulated, and replayed by something that understands the rules of time far beyond anything humanity can conceive. And we are caught in its preview window, unaware, watching the world as it loops, rewinds, accelerates, and decays, waiting for whatever comes next. I keep thinking about the missing hours, and about the loops, and now about the accelerated aging and reversals. The pattern is emerging so clearly that I can only conclude one thing. This is not Earth's own malfunction. Time is being manipulated from outside, from somewhere that can see all of it, measure all of it, control it, and it knows exactly how to use the humans, the objects, the buildings, the animals, the entire planet, as part of its experiment. I don't even know if the entity doing this understands what humans are, or if we matter at all. But we are being observed, tested, and cataloged in ways we cannot comprehend. A report came in from Antarctica. A team of researchers witnessed their entire base rewind overnight. Rivers froze upward. Snow unfell from the sky. One scientist claimed he saw himself walking across the ice, speaking to his past self, while both versions existed simultaneously. When the timeline snapped forward again, neither version remembered the conversation, but the analog recordings caught all of it. Two versions of the same man, discussing something no one can interpret. And this is only the beginning. I see shadows in the data, patterns repeating in ways that cannot be coincidence. Not just loops, not just reversals, not just fast forwards. The anomalies are forming a spiral grid across the globe, converging at a point in the central Atlantic. Whatever this thing is, it is mapping Earth in 4D, past, present, future, overlaid, folded, spliced. And humanity is the sample. People are splitting now. Duplicates stepping out of loops like shadows peeling off their originals. Some interact, some speak, some scream. Most vanish when the loop resets, as if they were never meant to exist outside that single slice of time. Animals know something is wrong. Birds fleeing seconds before time snaps backward and erases their flight. Entire herds freezing mid-motion, then reversing into earlier formations. Storms occurring in reverse, lightning dragging itself up into the clouds, thunder echoing backward, rain climbing toward black, silent skies. And cities, entire cities, blink out of the present and return seconds later, decades younger or older. Skyscrapers collapse into steel skeletons, then rebuild instantaneously. Streets revert to dirt roads, then back to the pavement, then to something that has never existed in any known decade. I have no answers, only observations. only the fragments that still break through the distortions. And what I see, what I feel, is horrifying. I look out the window, and the city feels alive. Buildings flexing like muscle, streets folding like paper, shadows moving in ways shadows shouldn't. I am inside the experiment now. But this radio booth, this little analog shell, is slightly outside the main timeline. A sliver of stability drifting between fractures. I can see events before they occur. I can send warnings seconds before the world realizes the danger. But it won't last. Nothing does. Not the clocks, not the memories, not the fragile sense of direction we cling to as the world keeps folding and unfolding around us. Everything is temporary now, suspended in a reality that trembles like a dying signal. And I know, at some point, the experiment will reach me the same way it has reached every city, every person, every timeline that collapsed without warning. I can already feel it getting closer, like a slow tightening of the air, like the universe drawing a circle around me. And then what? That's the question, the one that keeps repeating in my head, the one no scientist, no government, no philosopher, no theologian has ever been able to answer, because every time someone gets close to understanding, the timeline resets and erases the discovery. This is the question sitting at the edge of existence. What happens when the observer becomes aware of the observer? What happens when the timeline notices you noticing it? When reality turns its attention toward you, when the editor pauses mid-revision because something in you stands out, something refuses to be rewritten, something remembers what shouldn't be remembered. That's when the rules break. That's when the fabric between thought and creation tears. And that's the moment I'm heading toward, step by step, loop by loop, edit by edit. So stay with me. Don't trust clocks. They jump, they freeze, they lie, and sometimes they show times that never existed. Don't trust mirrors. They don't always reflect you. Sometimes they show older versions, younger versions, or versions that never survived. And don't trust anyone who claims they remember the missing hours clearly, because those people are either lying, or replaced, or rewritten into something that only looks human. Nothing is safe anymore, and nothing is predictable. I will continue transmitting for as long as this receiver exists slightly outside the fold, for as long as the timeline hasn't clipped me out. I will keep speaking because silence would mean surrendering to whatever revision comes next. I am not here to fight. There is no fighting something that edits causality. But I can witness, and I can leave a record for whoever or whatever remains after the final correction is complete. This is the last signal radio, still broadcasting through the fractures, still pushing through the stuttering static. The clocks, the buildings, the loops, the reversals, every one of them is just another segment of the spiral, another turn in a pattern that grows tighter, more deliberate, more unavoidable with every cycle. And even now I can feel it winding inward, drawing all of us to a single point. And the spiral is just getting started. I still have time to tell you what the governments of the world tried to bury long before the missing hours. You've heard the whispers over the decades, Cold War rumors, stories about scientists obsessed with time, programs that supposedly vanished into myth. Most people dismissed them. Paranoia, conspiracy dust, a shadowy bedtime story to explain things that didn't make sense. But it was real. It was called the Chronology Institute. Not a building, not an agency, not a university, a network. A secret alliance of physicists, mathematicians, engineers, defectors, and military analysts from multiple nations, working together in silence. People who spent their entire lives trying to answer a single question. What happens if time itself becomes the battlefield? They were publicly disbanded before most of us were born, officially erased. But they never truly dissolved. They went deeper, into layers no government could touch, into pockets of research that were intentionally made invisible. And when the missing hours struck, 7 hours lost to everyone else, they reactivated themselves before any official body even understood the scale of the event. Their first act wasn't to warn the public. It wasn't to stabilize the loops. It wasn't to reverse the damage. No, their first act was to track the anomalies. Every freeze, every rewind, every acceleration in the timeline, they began mapping it, measuring it, studying it like a living organism. 3 days into global chaos, they contacted me. Not because I'm important, not because I have insight or expertise, but because my broadcast signal, this old analog transmitter sitting in a half-collapsed booth, exists just slightly outside the main timeline. A temporal echo, they called it. A relay caught between versions of the present, just stable enough to survive the fractures that are now spreading like veins across the world. It makes me a witness, and that makes this signal the last thing they trust. The message arrived on paper. Not an email, not a phone call, a physical note smuggled through a moving pocket of stable time. The paper was slightly warped, ink still wet in places, as if time itself hesitated to let it exist. Here's what it said. The anomalies are not spontaneous. They are patterned. They are controlled. Earth is being scanned. At first, it felt like a bad joke, a cruel prank in a world that already seemed unhinged. But then the data arrived. Diagrams, charts, hand-drawn maps, scribbles in margins, every line precise, every symbol deliberate. Digital files had become useless, overwritten by shifting timelines, their contents splitting into alternate versions that contradicted each other. Only analog remained. Only paper could survive. The diagrams showed spirals. Not messy, not accidental. Perfect, expanding spirals tracing anomalies across continents, oceans, and atmosphere. The spirals connected missing hours, rewinds, loops, zones of accelerated aging, and reversed decay. Every event, every fracture, every rewind traced this pattern. The Chronology Institute called it the scan. The missing hours were the initial probe. The loops and reversals were the adjustments. The aging and rewinding now sweeping across the planet? That is the calibration phase. Everything is a measurement. Every reversed clock, every frozen second, every collapsing building, every decaying tree is data. And the more I observe, the more precise the measurements become. The world is not failing. It is being examined. It is being tested. And we, humans, animals, buildings, oceans, are the subjects in an experiment far beyond comprehension. I am inside it, broadcasting from just outside it, watching it unfold, relaying the signs, hoping someone, somewhere, is still able to understand what's happening before the scan reaches the center. Maps of the planet are being filled with spirals, layer upon layer of them, each anomaly forming a strand of a structure so impossibly exact it feels less like a natural pattern and more like blueprints unfolding in real time. Loops in South America repeating minutes, then hours, then entire days. Aging zones in Europe where cities crumble into dust and rebuild themselves from the foundation up. Reversals in Asia, where neighborhoods unwind like old film reels and reassemble with impossible symmetry. And temporal dead zones over the oceans, where nothing moves, not even light. Frozen patches of absolute stillness, spaced with mathematical precision. Every one of these events is placed exactly where it needs to be, not by randomness or decay, but by deliberate design. Temporal scientists always dreamed of studying time. Now, time is studying us, and whatever is doing it is not mechanical, not human, not biological, not divine, but something that sees the universe in dimensions we cannot imagine. Something that treats time the way we treat paper. Flat, workable, editable. According to the Chronology Institute, we are witnessing a planetary probe, not a visitation or an invasion, but a measurement. Time being stretched, reversed, looped, and accelerated because every anomaly is part of a scanning process that reads Earth's history, biology, architecture, and memory simultaneously. We are the specimen under a 4D microscope. And the Institute discovered something far more terrifying. Every anomaly contains a signature, a timestamp, but not from our timeline. An alien temporal code indicating that something external has breached our chronology. They call it the temporal lattice, a grid of interlocking timelines draped over Earth like a net, tightening with every passing day. One scientist managed to send a final handwritten message before their entire facility vanished from the present. We are being formatted. History is being overwritten. We may be the mistake being corrected. When I read that, the room seemed to compress, the air thickening as if time itself leaned closer to listen. Because if Earth is being scanned, if time is being mapped, then nothing is collapsing. Everything is being reorganized. The Institute traced the center of the global spiral to a point deep in the Atlantic Ocean, far beneath the surface, in a region with no tectonic activity, no magnetic anomalies, no geological relevance. Yet temporal signals radiate from it strong enough to freeze satellites, scramble clocks, and fracture causality. With each day, the anomalies multiply, loops expand, aging zones intensify, reversals no longer undo damage, but erase the existence of whatever stands within them. People walk into distortions and vanish. Not dead, not missing, not displaced, just overwritten, replaced by an earlier or later version of the space they occupied. The Institute believes these events are not malfunctions, but tests, experiments running across countless versions of Earth. Their final transmission said, "We are not alone in time. We never were. Something has found us, and it is rewriting the map of our existence." And now, all spirals across the world are tightening, converging toward that impossible point in the Atlantic. Whatever intelligence is conducting this scan is nearly finished measuring us. And when the scan ends, when the mapping phase completes, the Institute warns that the real event begins. Stay with me. If you can still hear this, you are still in the timeline. I'll keep broadcasting until time decides otherwise. For weeks we endured loops, reversals, missing hours, blinks, duplicates, collapsing cities, frozen skies, backward storms, people aging decades in a single night, and others reverting to childhood with memories they never lived. We counted time in broken fragments, measured our lives in echoes, and clung to whatever scraps of continuity we could still recognize as real. And now the truth stands before us, like a shadow stretching across every version of Earth at once. The anomalies were not random, not natural, not some catastrophic collapse of physics or a cosmic accident spiraling out of control. Something else has been here all along, hidden in the seams of existence, watching through the cracks in the timeline. Something ancient, vast, deliberate. The Chronology Institute called it a temporal probe, but that word is too small for what's unfolding. It is an intelligence, a surveyor of timelines, a cosmic editor with a reach so immense it can rewrite centuries the way we erase a chalk mark. I see it now in the patterns, in the spirals, in the latency zones and temporal dead pockets, in the blinks that converge across continents with impossible precision. It is not a ship, not a machine, not a creature shaped by biology or bone, no form, no body, no beginning or end. It is time itself, focused, sharpened, aware enough to dissect reality frame by frame. All the loops we witnessed, the reversed storms rising back into the clouds, the cities collapsing and rebuilding in seconds, the duplicates of people appearing beside themselves, those were tests, measurements, calibration sweeps running across every timeline at once. The universe is being scanned like a library of matter, memory, and possibility, and Earth. Earth is a book being rewritten, line by line, era by era. I am speaking to you as the only human who has survived outside the collapsing timelines, the last voice drifting through the cracks, while everything else folds inward. Everyone else is already being pulled into the revised chronology. Some blink out of existence before they even understand what's happening. Some remember lives they never lived, or futures that were never meant to happen. And some, terrifyingly, were never supposed to exist at all, and are being removed like errors in a draft. The cosmic editor is rearranging everything. Past, present, and future are being corrected, pruned, and overwritten into a version of the universe that does not include us. Cities age decades in minutes to match the intended timeline, their foundations cracking as if time itself were sanding them down to an earlier draft. People are split, merged, or erased entirely. Some flicker between versions of themselves, others dissolve like unfinished sentences in a book that is being violently edited. Animals sense the shifts long before humans do. They flee toward places that no longer exist, as if running from the gravity of deletion itself. Above it all, the sky fractures into layers, each revealing a glimpse of the mechanism behind the edits. A shimmering lattice of shifting light, impossible angles, and an endless architecture humming with the pressure of time rewriting matter. It is not chaos. It is precision. Cold, absolute, and terrifyingly intentional. It is not here to punish. It is not here to destroy. It is here to restore something older than Earth, older than the solar system itself, a structure of events that once flowed perfectly before an ancient divergence broke the intended sequence. And humanity is the divergence, a mistake in the chronology, an outcome that was never meant to branch, never meant to survive long enough to interfere with the order being realigned. The intelligence doesn't hate us. It simply corrects the record. Erasure is not violence to it. It is maintenance. Yet, there is a pause, a gap, a silence in the edits so unnatural it feels like the universe holds its breath. And that silence exists because I stand between timelines, untethered, unanchored, remembering every erased version of the world as if they are still layered over each other. I remember the missing hours, the blinks where continents shifted, the loops where the oceans reversed direction. I remember every impossible revision, and that makes me visible to the intelligence in a way no human should ever be. For the first time, it notices me not as a life form, but as a data error. It does not speak, does not move, but the weight of its awareness presses through reality. I am the anomaly it cannot parse. And in that pause, I broadcast to you. Not because I believe I can halt what is coming. Nothing can. Not because I can protect us. The edits do not negotiate. I broadcast because if even a fragment of humanity survives in any version of the future, someone must know what happened. Someone must understand why the world folded in on itself, why memories collapsed, why time abandoned consistency. The timelines converge now. All moments, births, deaths, choices, mistakes, collapse into a single point. Past and future collide like mirrors, shattering inward. The air thickens, the sky trembles, the world waits for the next correction. And I whisper into the microphone, the only constant left in a universe dissolving into drafts. If anyone is still hearing this, stay with me. Watch. Remember. Wait. Something is deciding what happens next. This is the last signal radio. And whatever comes, whatever the cosmic editor chooses for the new reality, let this transmission stand as a record. We were here, even if time itself decides not to remember.